Blessings Booktube. The name is Orestes. On the track, once more on the track, on the track. How many times around? How many blood-stained laps? How many black rows? The people who watched me when, in the chariot, I raised my hand glorious, and they roared triumphantly. The froth of the horses strikes me. When will the horses tire? The axle creaks, the axle burns. When will the axle burst into flame? When will the reins break? When will the hooves tread flush on the ground, on the soft grass, among the poppies, where in the spring you picked a daisy? They were lovely, your eyes, but you didn't know where to look, nor did I know where to look, I, without a country. I who go on struggling here, how many times around, and I feel my knees give way over the axle, over the wheels, over the wild track. Knees buckle easily when the gods so will it. No one can escape. What use is strength? You can't escape the sea that cradled you and that you search for at this time of trial, with the horses panting, with the reeds that used to sing in autumn to the Lydian mode. This is a poem by SEFERIS, who is a Greek poet who won the Nobel Prize. In fact, both Greek laureates are poets. SEFERIS wrote his masterpiece, Mythistorema, in 24 poems, like the 24 books of the Odyssey. He began in a more French symbolist mode in his early career and drifted into a more British modernist mode later on, a la I.A. Richards, T.S. Eliot. He wrote criticism as well of Dante. He wrote of Palamas, of Cavafy. The next poem I'm going to read you from him is very short. It's called Andromeda. In my breast the wound opens again, when the stars descend to become kin to my body, when silence falls under the footsteps of men. These stones sinking into time, how far will they drag me with them? The sea, who will be able to drain it dry? I see the hands beckon each dawn to the vulture and the haw, bound as I am to the rock that suffering has made mine. I see the trees breathing the black serenity of the dead, and then the smiles, so static, of the statues. So you have a beautiful assonance there at the end, with the, alliteration there at the end with the S sound, smiles, static, so static, statues. You have some great repetitions there, the stones sinking into time, the sea. The sea reappears in our next poem as well. It's one of his big motifs. This one is Hydra. Dolphins, banners, and the sounds of cannons. The sea, once so bitter to your soul, bore the many-colored and glittering ships and swayed, rolled, and tossed them, all blue with white wings. Once so bitter to your soul, now full of colors in the sun. White sails and sunlight and wet oars, struck with a rhythm of drums on stilled waves. Your eyes watching would be beautiful, your arms reaching out would glow, your lips would come alive as they used to, at such a miracle. That's what you were looking for. What were you looking for in front of ashes, or in the rain, in the fog, in the wind? Even when he lights, the lights were growing dim, and the city was sinking, and on the stone pavement, the Nazarene showed you his heart. What were you looking for? Why don't you come? What were you looking for? So again, we have that repetition there at the end, the rhetorical questions. We have the more alliteration, white wings, watching, this wonderful rhythm of drums and stilled waves, often in triplets, sometimes in sixes with pairs, triple pairs. And our last poem Argonauts. And a soul, if it is to know itself, must look into its own soul. The stranger and enemy, we've seen him in the mirror. They were good, the companions. They didn't complain about the work or the thirst or the frost. They had the bearing of trees and waves that accept the wind and the rain, accept the night and the rain and the sun, without changing in the midst of change. They were fine. Whole days they sweated at the oars with lowered eyes, breathing in rhythm, and their blood reddened a submissive skin. Sometimes they sang with lowered eyes. As we were passing the deserted island with the barberry figs to the west, beyond the Cape of the Dogs that bark, if it is to know itself, they said, it must look into its own soul, they said. And the oars struck the sea's gold in the sunset. We went past many capes, many islands, the sea, leading to another sea, gulls and seals. Sometimes disconsolate women wept, lamenting their lost children, and others, frantic, sought Alexander the Great, and glories buried in the depths of Asia. We moored on shores full of night scents, the birds singing with waters that left on the hands the memory of a great happiness. But the voyages did not end. Their souls became on with the oars and the oarlocks, with the solemn face of the prow, with the rudder's wake, with the water that shattered their image. The companions died, one by one, with lowered eyes. Their oars mark the place where they sleep on the shore. No one remembers them. Justice. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this Poetry Thursday. I'll see you next Poetry Thursday.